The Cardinals raced past the Colonels in the season opener.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Labor Day edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week, your team every day. The first episode of September is going to be a full recap / reaction to the 51-17 victory over Eastern Kentucky in the season opener for the Louisville Cardinals. Overall, turnovers and penalties, the main discouraging thing that we saw on Saturday. But for the most part, offense looked the part in the first half. I thought Miller Moss was impressive, even looking past that box score and some fluky turnovers. Defense looked the part. Gave up some points in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, defense was pretty solid. And you kind of saw, for the most part, what you were hoping for in the season opener. But first, today's episode of the show brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So this first segment is going to be about the overall vibes after Saturday. You know, what I liked, what I didn't like, and just the overall thoughts. And coming into this game, of course, there's that, new season anxiety. You want to see your team play. You want to see them look the part, right? You want to make sure that they can start out looking pretty strong, and the Cardinals did that. I mean, you won 51-17. The spread was 38.5, and I was vocal about it. I'm not a huge fan of large spreads, regardless of who's playing, because if you're blowing a team out, chances are you're going to put your backups in and thus open up the door for garbage time points. And that's sort of what happened in this game. I mean, Eastern Kentucky had 10 points in the fourth quarter when Louisville was playing their third stringers. So it is what it is. Winning 51-17, it was 41-7 at the end of the first half. And that 7 points came on a Miller Moss throw that was a little bit too high. Trayshawn Hurry tipped it up, and then Vito Tisdale was able to catch the ball and almost walk into the end zone from 20 yards out. So it's not like Eastern Kentucky's offense did much in that first half. So in a game where you're favored by that much, I repeat this all the time, it's one that there's not a ton to gain, but there's a considerable amount to lose. I mean, of course, winning is what matters. Winning by 10, winning by 50 is still going to look the same on the record, right? A win is a win is a win. But in a game where you're supposed to win by a ton of points, if you look good and you cover the spread or you get close to covering the spread, then it's like, okay, well, you handle business. You're not really going to get much more than a pat on the back. And, of course, a W in the win-loss column. But if you struggle, if you allow the team to stay in the game, or, Lord forbid, you lose that game, then there is a considerable amount to lose in terms of perception, in terms of momentum, you name it. Well, we've talked about this in the past. So Louisville winning 51-17, I'm not taking too much away from it. Like, I'm not coming away extremely encouraged, extremely discouraged. Like, I'm just kind of here and present because Louisville did what they were supposed to do. Like, yeah, I mean, if you want to make the case that the Cardinals handling business is encouraging, I won't disagree with that. I'm not going to tell you to not be encouraged. I'm just kind of not getting too high, not getting too low. Like, Miller Moss looked the part. Isaac Brown looked the part. The Cardinals offense looked the part. So did the Cardinals defense. I mean, Eastern Kentucky, from a yardage standpoint, they had 150 total yards. So I can't really be mad at the Louisville defense. Yes, Eastern Kentucky has 17 points, but only 10 of those were allowed by the Cardinals defense, and it was in the fourth quarter. The starters were benched for the most part after halftime. Brady Allen took over for Miller Moss right after the end of the second quarter. Chris Bell and Caullin Lacy, I don't believe, played in the second half either. I don't think that Isaac Brown really got much work in the second half, if at all. I mean, Isaac Brown had 6 carries. Duke Watson had 2 carries. So combined 8 carries between the two of them. Sean Boykins Jr., walk-on Braxton Jennings, Kewan Brown, those 3 got the bulk of the carries, combining for 16 touches in the game. So, I mean, like I said, it's just, I'm not really looking too much into it. There was some conversation and discussion after the first half as to whether or not Louisville should have kept the starters in for a little bit longer. And I see both sides of the argument. Like, on one hand, you want to make sure that you keep guys healthy. You don't want to risk injury when you're up by almost 40 points. In that respect, I agree. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if Miller Moss was troubled by those interceptions, maybe he gets a couple of series in the third quarter to just kind of end the game on a high note. But with how fluky they were, it is what it is, right? Isaac Brown showed you what he needed to show you. Duke Watson had a touchdown reception in the second quarter. So, I mean, your starters got good work. Caullin Lacy was incredible. More on that in the next segment. Chris Bell, I mean, he had an unsportsmanlike penalty that kind of, didn't make me feel great, but it is what it is. That's where I kind of was discouraged. The Cardinals had 12 penalties for 106 yards. Not good. And in this game, we talked all week about play a clean game. Don't turn the ball over, win the turnover battle, and don't commit many penalties. And Louisville went 0 for 3 in those categories. 12 penalties for 106 yards. EKU had 8 for 51. And is it something that can be contributed to the first game? Being rusty? Perhaps. I mean, we'll see when they play James Madison on Friday if it's something that carries over. But the special teams holds. I'll say the holding on the play that Miller Moss had a big gain down the field. Maybe if he throws the ball sooner, it's not a hold, but still, yeah, at that point. There was a face mask. I feel like the majority, without looking at it and going back and watching it, I feel like the majority of the penalty yardage was from the special teams units. So that's something that needs to be cleaned up. And like I said, it's not going to be a perfect performance. Something that you take the win and you just build off of it. Like, you see what went wrong, you go back to the film room, and you correct it. That's what football is all about. That's what playing sports is all about. Louisville was never going to play a 100% perfect game in the season opener. I mean, they might not play a perfect game ever. I mean, no one really ever plays a truly perfect game. But the penalties were something that that's the one thing that I was discouraged about the most. The Cardinals did not force a turnover, which, I mean, Eastern Kentucky didn't really throw the ball a ton. Only, 14 throws on the afternoon from Miles Burkett. A lot of it was running the football. So, excuse me. I mean, not really worried so much about the inability in week 1 to force the turnovers. It was more so because they did get the sacks, right? It was more so the 3 turnovers that they gave away. The Miller Moss turnovers were kind of fluky. Brady Allen threw an interception as well in the second half. The 2 from Miller Moss, we'll discuss a little bit more in the next segment. Not really worried too much about them. I'm kind of more so just kind of annoyed that it happened the way it did. And also Louisville not forcing the turnover. Like they lost the turnover battle. They committed as many penalties as they did. It is not the end of the world, but doesn't really make you feel good after a game against a team that you should have and did beat by a good amount. So 2 of those turnovers I'm not really worried about from Miller Moss. I thought he impressed in his Louisville debut. Caullin Lacy was great. Isaac Brown was great. The Cardinals offense did what they needed to do. They showed you what they needed to show you. We'll discuss more when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, quick question for all of you football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code LOCKED ON, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com, grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design, and use the code LOCKED ON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game, and I just love those vintage Louisville designs. Also, at this time, I want to tell you about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, Gametime. College football, it's back, baby. And I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself with endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at checkout, you name it. Because that's why I ended up using Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Gametime yesterday, and in just a couple taps, I saw the amazing deals for the Eastern Kentucky game, and I'm talking about all of those favorite college football games with the prices lower on the Gametime app the closer that you get to kickoff. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Also, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for helping us out. We're continuing on along in our recap reaction episode of the season opener for the Louisville Cardinals, 51-17 over the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. Just a heads up, these recap episodes didn't really work out this week, but for the most part moving forward, I'd like to have them the day of or immediately after on the next day of the recaps. So this one coming a couple days after, unfortunately, but moving forward, that's kind of the plan that I have. Throughout the season. But let's go to the offense. Offense did what they needed to do. The starters, 41 points in the first half. Now, I know that one of those touchdowns was a special teams, but Cardinals offense was high octane. Throughout the game, whenever Deuce, Adams, and Brady Allen came in, didn't really score many points. There was a touchdown dropped in the end zone in the fourth quarter, which would have given Louisville probably 54, 55 points. But 545 yards of total offense, 313 through the air, 232 on the ground, 8.3 yards per rush, 8.5 yards per pass. There were 3 interceptions, but Miller Moss, I felt like, did what he needed to do in his Louisville debut. 17-25, 223 yards, 1 passing touchdown. That was to Duke Watson. In the second quarter, he had a rushing touchdown as well on a quarterback keeper, was trying to scan the field in the red zone inside the 10-yard line and was able to find some open field and scamper for the 8-yard touchdown. A couple of those touchdowns were taken away by rushing touchdowns. The Cardinals had 4 of them. 3 were from Cardinal running backs. Isaac Brown, 6 for 126 and 2 touchdowns. didn't really get much work, but hey, he showed you exactly what you were hoping to see in year 2. There was that play in the second quarter. I think it was the second quarter, or it might have been the first, where he absorbed that initial contact and then foot race for the final 40 yards, and no one caught him. Had a long of 68 yards on that touchdown, averaged 21 yards per carry. Isaac Brown, you knew you weren't going to see much of him in this game. But what you did see, you're like, dude, the guy is so incredible. But back to Miller Moss for a second. 17 to 25, 223, 2 total touchdowns combined and 2 interceptions. It's not the greatest stat line, but you weren't asking him to do too much. He made the solid throws on the out routes, a lot of quick throws, had a couple of deep throws that were completed. The Duke Watson touchdown, had a throw downfield to Caullin Lacy. I think there were a couple to Antonio Meeks as well. Chris Bell had some solid plays, 5 for 63 for him. He led all of the Cardinals receivers. Caullin Lacy, 4 for 62. Chris Hughes, 3 for 50 and a touchdown. His touchdown from Brady Allen. But everyone's talking about the 2 interceptions from Miller Moss. The first interception was when Louisville was trying to go in that hurry-up offense at the end of the first half. A pass out to Trajan Hurry was a little bit too high. There's that whole mantra that if you touch it, you can catch it. Well, this one was high. I'm not really going to fault Trajan Hurry much. Miller Moss throws the ball a little bit too high. It's tipped up in the air. Vito Tisdale's in the perfect situation, in the perfect placement. He takes the pass back for a touchdown. Oh, well, you're up 41-0 at that point. It's not the greatest thing to see, but I'm not really going to claim that the sky is falling based upon one bad throw. That was like Miller Moss's one bad play in the first half. The second one was on the next drive where, there's less than 2 minutes to go. He's throwing the ball deep, less than a minute ago, really. He throws the ball deep to Antonio Meeks. It's a perfect throw. Meeks is unable to come down with the play, and the ball is tipped up, and then Meeks kicks it into the air, and then the Eastern Kentucky guy's right there, and he picks it off. That's not on Miller Moss. It's one of those that looks worse in the box score, but it's not on Miller Moss. So if you watch the game, If you just box score chase, then you're going to not factor context into the situation, and you're going to think that it was worse than it actually was. Miller Moss showed you everything you needed to see. He was making quick reads. He was diagnosing the coverage at the line of scrimmage. And I came away impressed. I loved the poise. I loved his ability to sit there in the pocket and make the throws, go through his progressions. He looked comfortable. And he's only going to play better and better. This was just week 1. I didn't really see much that raised any red flags. Honestly, quite the contrary. I felt what I was hoping to see from Miller Moss, I did. And I keep coming back to this. Well, the team did what they needed to do. I saw what I needed to see. They proved what they needed to prove. It feels kind of very cliche what I'm saying, but in a game where you're supposed to win by 38.5 points in a season opener, the team did what they needed to do, right? Caullin Lacy also over 200 all-purpose yards. He had the punt return for the touchdown. This guy was incredible. 4 returns for 125 yards on those punt returns. If he can stay healthy, and more on this here in the next episode where we're going to talk about Caullin Lacy's all-purpose ability. But if he can stay healthy, he could be a real asset in the special teams department. And my reservations, I just don't want a top receiver to get hurt on special teams. That's where my concerns stem. But if he's doing what he can do and staying healthy in the process, then of course, hey, you'd love to have him back there, because if you can win the special teams part of the game, it could be a huge momentum shift in any close game moving forward. So, yeah, offense Special teams combined for 41 points. Brady Allen was okay. 6 of 9, had an interception. Did have a touchdown in this game as well to Chris Hughes. Deuce Adams only had one drive. I wanted to see him get more than one drive. He was 2 of 3 for 21 yards. Keywan Brown, 6 for 25 and a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Walk-on Braxton Jennings, 6 for 27. Sean Boykins, 5 carries for 40 yards. It was a matter of spreading the wealth on Saturday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different receivers caught at least one pass on Saturday. So, hey, offense was pretty good. Could they have done more in the second half? Yes, but for the most part, they handled business. Defensively, I was impressed. Context included, I was impressed specifically with the Cardinals pass rush, and we'll explain that when we come back on this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. At this time, I want to tell you about our friends over at Rugiet. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. It's a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. I love that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off today. That's rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for safety information. Into the final segment of this reaction episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about Caullin Lacy's all-purpose opportunities and ability. We will discuss what we kind of learned from the ACC in week 1 and much more as we get ready to continue in a short game week. The Cardinals back in action on Friday against James Madison. We're going to have a crossover with the Locked On Sunbelt host, David Schultz. It's going to be a great week of football content. But initial reaction from the Cardinals defense. Looks kind of worse than it is, kind of like the Miller-Moss box score, but looks worse than it actually was because one of those touchdowns was a pick six. So the starting defense didn't give up much at all. Actually, they didn't give up a single point. The EKU offense got 10 garbage time points in the second half, in the fourth quarter against the Cardinals' third-string defense. And from what I was hoping to see from the Cardinals defense starting, Miles Burkett, 5 for 14, 76 yards, no touchdowns, averaged 5.4 yards per pass. 1.9 yards per rush. Braden Latham, 10 for 25. Brady Hensley, 9 for 24. Telly McAllister, 5 for 13. Jalen Montgomery, 3 for 7. Like this was, it was everything you were hoping to see from the Cardinals defense. Like that interception, it was 3rd and 9 at the Louisville 30, returned for 20 yards. So EKU set up shop at the 16-yard line in the fourth quarter, and they were able to capitalize on the short field. Like for the most part, Cardinals defense handled business. What I was most impressed by with the Cardinals defense was the ability to get after the quarterback. Clev Lubin had 2 sacks. Adonijah Green had 1. Gerard had a tackle for loss. Clev Lubin had 2. AJ Green had 1 tackle for loss. Louisville ended up with 6. So, and again, you look at the box score, not really going to paint the full picture, but Clev Lubin, gosh, talking about a player that was winning every single battle. Every time the ball was snapped, Clev Lubin beating his guy off the line of scrimmage. Adonijah Green beating his guy off the line of scrimmage. So something that you can be encouraged about moving forward, even though you're playing inferior competition, you're playing an offensive line that very well could be the worst offensive line you play all year. No disrespect to Eastern Kentucky, but it could be. I mean, let's call it how it is. It could be, but it's nice to see AJ Green continue to look really good on that Cardinals edge after having a really good spring, having a really good fall camp. Like, my hot take for the game was that he was going to get 2 sacks in this game. He only had 1. It was early in the game, but of course he only played for a portion of the game. Clev Lubin, gosh, this guy, as good as advertised. 2 sacks in the opening game. I feel good about my prediction for him being the leading sack leader for the Cardinals. Jordan Girard had 6 tackles from the interior. If he can stay healthy, going to be a menace on the interior of that front 7. Maurice Davis had 3 tackles. Corey Gordon, 3 tackles. TJ Quinn with 3 tackles. Micah Carter had a pass deflected. Renee Conga also had one as well. And Rodney Johnson. I thought I saw something where Rodney Johnson might have got banged up a little bit in that game. I'm hoping that I'm not correct. But I thought that there was something that I had seen on social media where he got a little bit banged up. Hopefully that's not the case. But something else I wanted to see for the Cardinals defense is no injuries. And same could be said for the offensive side, of course. But on the defense where you kind of worry about some of that quality depth, felt like the Cardinals had a pretty clean day from an injury standpoint. So I don't really know what more you could have seen. Like, I saw some stuff on social media. It's like, oh, well, Ron English's defense is doing the same thing. And I'm kind of looking around like, guys, are we watching the same game? Because I didn't really see much at all from the Cardinals defense that sparked any type of discouragement. Like, I mean, 150 total yards, and there were 2 halves where not even a ton of starters were playing. Like, most of your starters were taken out after the first half. You saw the pass rush. You saw solid rushing defense. You didn't give up much through the air. I mean, the opposing quarterback had 76 yards on 14 attempts, 1.9 yards per rush in the rushing category. Like, I don't really know what more you wanted to see outside of maybe forcing turnovers. I get that. Like, forcing those turnovers is probably the one aspect you're like, okay, it could have been better. Again, I think that the way to go is to not get too high, not get too low. Understand that you beat a team by close to the spread. You handle business, and that's my main takeaway. It was kind of relieving to see that it was uneventful in a good way. So, hey, 51-17 victory. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to talk about Caullin Lacy as an all-purpose back. As an all-purpose player, not all-purpose back, all-purpose player as a wide receiver, as a special team star, and much more. We'll discuss what happened throughout the ACC. Clemson dropping the ball. Not really great for them, but could it, again, confirm that there's a ton of parity in the conference? And I do think it does. We'll discuss when we come back on the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We'll see you then. Go Cards.